Brazil, a land truly rich in every kind of resource you can imagine. This ranges from agriculture and livestock to energy and even rare minerals. Brazil has it all. And the best thing isn't just these riches like abundant water and fertile land, but the Brazilian people themselves. They are seen globally as joyful, hospitable, sociable, and extremely creative people. We joke about ourselves, we make jokes about our own problems. And that ends up enchanting the world. At least that's how it was in the old days. Remember, we're in the middle of a World Cup. If we go back to the year 2002, more precisely on June 30th at the International Stadium of Yokohama in Japan, Brazil was getting ready to face Germany and win its fifth championship with a 2-0 victory. On that day, the team took the field led by the true Brazilian coach, Luiz Felipe Scolari, known as Felipão, leading the Brazilian national team, with Marcos, Lúcio, Edmilson, Roque Júnior, Cafu, Gilberto Silva, Kleberson, Ronaldinho Gaúcho, Roberto Carlos, Rivaldo, and Ronaldo, the phenomenal. What stood out the most in that World Cup, which went down in history and was a true gift for those who watched it, wasn't Brazil's victory, but the way each team took the field. Brazil looked like they were going to a party, everyone in a great mood, playing samba, joking with each other, literally avoiding the spotlight and creating an atmosphere of camaraderie and warmth. Meanwhile, with the German team, international journalists who had access to both teams said that the difference was drastic. The atmosphere in the German team was like they were going into a confrontation. It was literally like a war. The players were very serious, focused, they didn't talk to each other, they looked more like Marines arriving on the field for a mission. Many specialized journalists said that Brazil didn't stand a chance because they weren't even taking the game seriously and seemed more like they were going to play a pickup game. But that team became known for their artistic style of soccer. And after Brazil's 2-0 victory, the international media was unanimous in saying that soccer should be like that, a celebration full of joy and not this tense and sad atmosphere, more like Marines going into a fight than a soccer game. Those were good times. Time went by, the decades went by. Today, the world is shocked by the news of violence that has increased a lot in our country, and the greatest violence today is committed by the authorities themselves, looting the population. For example, in this image, you see Polo 3, sold here for around 95,790 reais, and it's an entry-level economy car. Just in taxes, we're charged more than 38,000 reais. According to data released by the National Association of Motor Vehicle Manufacturers, the taxes on automobiles in Brazil are among the highest in the world. For several models, about 44% of the amount paid by the consumer corresponds to taxes. This percentage can exceed 50% in some versions. This means that for a vehicle sold for 100,000 reais, more than 40,000 reais may be related only to the tax burden. This scenario directly influences the price of new vehicles and reduces part of the population's access to brand new cars. The combination of high taxation, production costs, logistics, and other charges causes entry-level models to reach values close to or even above 100,000 reais, making the dream of owning a brand new car a distant dream for most consumers. The question that remains here is, how much longer is it worth being nice and charismatic the way most Brazilians are seen abroad? Does this directly affect our behavior in the face of things like this, which between us is a huge abuse, not to say theft? Other nations considered civilized, more advanced than us, people in the first world with much more access to luxury, with infrastructure in their countries far superior to ours. Most of them have a degree and behave completely differently toward abuses by their authorities, their leaders. For example, this article published in the international media says the following: People's hero. Outrage over excessive fines leads a man to destroy speed cameras and become a hero in the city. He did what everyone would like to do. And then you ask, but in which country did this happen, Davey? Was it in Africa? In Mexico? In a country similar to Brazil? No. It was in a first world country. If that's not enough, it happened in a European country. Italy. The mainstream media article says the following. A resident of Italy started attracting attention in several cities in the north of the country after repeatedly knocking down speed monitoring equipment installed on the sides of highways. The series of incidents caused widespread public reaction and divided opinions among residents and authorities about the role of these devices in road safety. The equipment was found rendered useless after being cut with power tools during the night. The situation led the authorities to step up investigations to identify the person responsible. At the same time, the story gained great visibility and inspired demonstrations of support, including murals and products referencing the character, while others criticized the damage caused to public property. The episode also broadened the debate about the use of monitoring equipment. Part of the population believes that they are important for reducing speed and increasing safety on highways, while another portion questions the number of devices installed and their purpose. The discussion takes place in a context where traffic safety continues to be a highly relevant topic in the country, given the high number of incidents recorded annually on the roads. Unfortunately, my noble and dear brothers, the nations are going broke. Italy's public debt exceeds 3.15 trillion euros, representing about 139% of the country's gross domestic product, or GDP. These numbers place the country among the most indebted in the world in absolute terms, and with the second highest debt-to-GDP ratio in the Eurozone, behind only Greece. The people who were against it, the International Reserve Fund. Since the creation of international banks that prey on nations like loan sharks, the wealth of the 13 families keeps growing, while nations only get deeper in debt. In the fights between the left and the right, the population is being stripped of its own assets. These institutions like the BIS, the Federal Reserve, and all of them start demanding the privatization of those companies that make a profit. Essential services, literally. Look, no one here is a communist or against making partnerships or privatizing what brings losses. But you don't sell essential services. Essential services, as the name says, are essential. Therefore, they have to belong to the people. But nations are giving that up, losing their sources of income and being left with only their main source of income, whether it's in the United States, Japan, China, Brazil, or even Italy. The main source of income is always the pulse that still beats. In other words, the people. So, various causes are championed. We are going to find you to correct you, to preserve your life, and you see this, even with the support of the mainstream media, as a good thing, as protection for yourself. When in fact what is really happening is what the numbers themselves are showing. For you to understand what this Italian debt of 139% means, imagine that you worked all day to earn 10 euros. When you put those 10 euros in your pocket, you would owe 13 euros and 90 cents. That's the situation of the Italian citizen. For every 10 they put in their pocket, they're already owing 13 euros and 90 cents. And this debt only tends to increase. That's why, among other reasons, many conspiracy theorists are talking about the Great Reset, saying it's reached a level where it can't go on anymore. Any RPG game or something like that, the game ends when you win. The game ends when you get everything. So, if you want to keep playing, you have to restart after you've achieved everything. The system is reaching exactly that point. They've already achieved all they could. And now it's time, with this power and influence, to reset things and create a new game exactly as they've wanted since the beginning of time. Most of the decisions, my brothers, are ancient. And when we observe this behavior in the world, we can understand why things in our country are exactly the way they are. Unfortunately, the information is out there. Most people prefer to ignore it and keep buying into the illusions of the system. These extortionate prices imposed by our own authorities will only get worse. Our debt today, according to information from the government itself, reaches 10.6 trillion reais. This is the highest level in the last 5 years. This currently represents 81.1% of our GDP. Our situation is much more stable compared to Italy's. For every 10 they earn, they owe 13.90. For every 10 we earn, we keep 1.90. But don't celebrate too soon. In fact, there's nothing to celebrate. The IMF projects that Brazil's debt will reach 100% of GDP in the coming years. And we already feel the effects of this every day. Everything is getting more expensive. Basic things, essentials for our lives, are becoming harder and harder to afford. Unfortunately, most people just want to keep trusting the same scoundrels and only care about beer and soccer. After all, we're still in the dirty World Cup. With this kind of behavior, my noble and dear brothers, we can be sure of the days ahead. What we have left to do is this: don't get into debt. A lot of people bought into the narrative that, hey, if you don't have money, just pay with a credit card. I've said this more than once on this channel. You don't pay for anything with a credit card. When you use a credit card, you're simply getting into debt. From now on, my brother, seeing the situation we're in, you're going to need to be even more economical. Buy only the basics and get rid of anything that's not essential. Because with the proposed restrictions on debtors, even leaving the country could soon become impossible for those who are in debt. Imagine debt today as a big anchor that will put you in a rancher's hands like cattle. Avoid buying what isn't essential. Anyway, this video ends here. I hope you enjoyed it and above all understood it. If that happened, share it. Show it to more people. Because my brothers, dark days are approaching. All that's left is for us to do our part and pray a lot to God. And one thing is always connected to the other, because faith without action is dead. Hugs, my brothers. May God be with you. And I hope the information has helped you understand the situation we are facing. If you can become a member, do it, because it really helps the channel. If you can't, share, comment, and leave a like. I'm counting on you, my brother. As long as you're here, it'll always be worth it for us to do this work. Hugs, and now, FUM!